on your way down, my name is Josh Overton. I'm the lead pastor of Rescue Church, a church coming to Durham in 21 days. I know some of you recognize some of your faces. If you don't know me, I'm also Pastor Anthony's long-lost brother he's never told you about. And I've got some great stories I'd love to share with you after service. It's always a pleasure to be with you guys. You guys, again, have truly become extended family. In fact, our kids team is here this morning, and they got a chance to hang out with your kids team. So thank you. Put your hands together for your kids team. Amazing. And I can say that, because I've got buy-in, because I bring my kids to your VBS every year. They walk away not just with more knowledge, but feeling loved and just a great time. And so I'm so thankful that you guys, in another way, are able to invest into us. So thank you. The rest of our team is at another church plant, another friend this morning, Pastor Brad Barber and Soul Church. And so we are gearing up for the launch of our church. But funny enough, you guys are in a pretty big transition as well. 21 days as well for your big move. If you didn't know that, I hate to be the first person to tell you. Things are going to look a little bit different in a few weeks, but someone in a red shirt can fill you in, I'm sure. But I am excited for what you guys are doing, and it's really cool to be able to do it together. And we are in this together. Amen. It's important that we know that we don't get along in a silo, and you're not the only church, the only people that love God, even though it feels like it sometimes. There are other people here with you, and we can do this together. And so, again, I'm excited just to spend a few moments with you. I'm going to be reading primarily from Matthew chapter 11, verses 28 through 30, if you want to turn there. Matthew 11, verses 28 through 30. And, man, every time Pastor Anthony invites me to come here, I get really excited for all the reasons that I just shared with you. And really, I was just thinking through invitations in general. And if you're in here and you're like, well, I don't really care to get invited to things, that's a lie, because the first time people are gathering and you didn't get invited, it really messes you up, right? So everyone in their own way likes invitations, but I just started thinking through how invitations have changed, right? I mean, there's a word of mouth that'll kind of always be around, but you look at the three different ways that we typically get invitations in 2019. You get text messages, right? And that's usually like your closest friends, and spur of the moment, let's get a meal, let's go see a movie, let's hang out, let's watch the game, whatever, that's great. But if I get a Facebook invite, it tells me two things, right? You waited to the last minute to plan, and I probably need to eat before I show up, right? That's probably what it means. And but if you get an invitation in the mail, and some of you Pinterest moms know what I'm talking about. If I get an invitation in the mail, that proves it is thought out. You put effort behind it. There's value, and there's going to be a spread of food. It's going to be in a great location. I get excited about those invitations. You know what I'm saying? It's just different than a Facebook invite. And have you ever been invited and you accepted the invitation, maybe a little reluctantly because you just didn't know what to expect, or you really didn't feel like going? And that's kind of how some of you treat wedding invitations. You're like, it's like the same thing. You know how it's going to end, right? But then you get there, and it was pretty fun, right? Weddings in particular. You get there and the food really good. And man, the people that you didn't know, that you actually enjoyed talking to them, right? It was different. It kind of exceeded your expectations. It was better than you realized. You thought it was going to be one thing, and maybe it was a little bit better, a little bit more. And in following Jesus in my life for 30 years, and it's been a pretty taking this detour and then getting back on track, and then taking this detour and then getting back on track. And some of you say you shared that same story. Others of you are just getting on that journey for the first time, and that's amazing. And I've just noticed through my life and looking at the story of Jesus in the Bible, through Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, through that gospel, Jesus does a couple things, always. He's always doing one or two things: inviting us and then initiating things in our life. Jesus is always inviting us and initiating things in our life. And maybe that parallel is a little too real for us, because for some of us, we have been invited to church 1,000 times before we actually came. We've heard the invitation to accept Christ 1,000 times before we actually made that decision, largely because we thought it was going to be one thing, And then we finally took that invitation and we got there, and it was far exceeded what we thought it was going to be. But Jesus is always doing that. He's always calling us up and into more. And I think about the season that we're entering in and the season that you guys are in right now, and you've experienced so many great things here in this campus, in this facility. Some of you found Jesus in this facility, what God did through this church. Some of your marriages have been restored. Your kids have been saved. Incredible, incredible success and celebrations. But now it's time to go up and into more. Jesus is always doing that. When he found the disciples, you thought you were a fisherman, but you're about to be a fisher of men, right? Look what he did in the life of Paul, calling him in to more. Look what happens when he found the woman caught in adultery. He always invites us and initiates us up and into more than what we've known, more than what we've experienced. Most importantly, more about him. And so when we look at this passage in Matthew chapter 11, verses 28 through 30, I'm going to be reading from the NIV. It says this, and if you've been to church at any amount of time, if you're familiar with the Bible, you've read this 1,000 times. But I could not think of a better word to give you guys, not only because it's the new year, but thinking through where you're going to be in 21 days. Listen to the words of Jesus. He says, "Come to me. Come to me, all of you who are weary and carry heavy burdens." I know you probably don't want to raise your hand right now, but some of you, that's hidden right here. Whether you're involved and serving and sacrificing already to prepare for the hard work and the move that's going to take place here at Northpark, or maybe just in your own personal life, you connect with that. Weary and you carry heavy burdens. Here's what Jesus says. Here's the invitation. Come to me and I will give you rest. I love the way that the late Eugene Patterson paraphrases this scripture in the Message. He says, "Get away with me. Get away with me." Those of you that are married, it's one thing to go out on like a date night with your wife, your spouse, and spend a couple hours. It's a whole different level when you get the whole weekend away without the kids. It's different, right? It's a different level. It's a different level of intimacy, is it not? It's different. So Jesus isn't just saying, hey, come, but get away with me. It's different. Get away with me. And here's what I love. And you will recover your life. Some of you in here, you would say, well, I follow Jesus. I can check that box. Believe in him. I come to church. I can check that box. I serve on the dream team. I'm in a group. I come to Wednesday night Bible study. I even tithe. But if you looked internally, and if you just looking a few weeks back through the holidays, over the past 6 months, over the past couple years, while you would say that you feel like you have made a decision to follow Christ, you would look back and you would see that certain things are missing. There was no joy during the holidays. You haven't been able to really love and trust. You haven't really been able to take risk and dream. There's something that has been missing. And while you show up on Sunday and you love it when you're here, you walk out of here and by Tuesday and Wednesday you feel overwhelmed by the things around you, by the task at hand, by the expectations that's placed on you, the anxiety, the fear, the stress. Perhaps you walked in here today and you're excited about what is going to happen in 21 days, but it also at the same time, you're like, do we have to do this? Aren't there other churches that can reach these people? Do we have to be that church? It excites me, but I feel drained. Maybe you're excited about what you're doing right now in your life. You're excited about your job. You appreciate the paycheck, but it's just not fulfilling you. Something in your life is missing. That's what Jesus is talking about here. Anyone in here just feel like just burned out on kind of this, just always trying to strive and climb the ladder and prove yourself and advance in your career and take care of things and win people's approval and all, the life that we live, right? It stresses us out. It gets old. I want you to listen to what Jesus is saying here today, what he's inviting every single individual in this room, what he wants to initiate into our lives. That means he wants to admit us into this. He wants to let us in on this. And sadly, it's something that in 30 years, I've been involved in church almost every Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night, revival, VBS, kids, youth camp, all that. I got church kid. And I'm just now understanding this piece of it. So this could be a thing that if you don't follow Jesus, you could step into today. This could be a thing if you're very familiar with church and Jesus. It could be a new level for you, a new advance for you. To continue on with the invitation in verse 29, he says, take my yoke upon you. Let me teach you, because I am humble and gentle at heart. And I love this. And you will find rest. I mean, some of you in here were like, it would just be great to sleep 8 hours. It would. It would change your life if you could find a way to sleep for 8+ hours. Anxiety is through the roof. Stress is through the roof. Infants won't shut up. And I got 3 kids, so I can say that. Like, if I could just have a few hours of sleep, it would change your life. And it is important. Jesus set rhythms to create that. It's not just in the Bible to take up space. He was intentional with it. But this isn't just, he's not just talking about physical rest. He says, come to me and I will give you rest for your souls. Rest for your souls. The reason you can't sleep at night is not just because your body is at unrest, but your soul, the very core of you, is at unrest. For my yoke is easy to bear, and the burden that I give you is light. So there's 3 things I just want to point out that Jesus offers here in this invitation, and then we'll walk through them for a few moments. If we come, understand that this is very much an invitation from Jesus, but there is an action required on our behalf, which is pretty true for all things Christianity. That Christ has done his part. We still have to pick up the cross and carry it. You know what I'm saying? So this is the invitation that Jesus makes, and if we come to him, he will give us rest. He will give us relief, and he will give us rhythm. And some of us in here really need some help with rhythm. You know what I'm saying? Like, we really need that help. Oh, Jesus is here to help you today. I was supposed to tell you to tell your neighbor something right there so I could drink that water, and it wouldn't be awkward, but I forgot. So it is what it is. I've got 21 days to figure that stuff out, so I'm good, right? I'm good. So rest. Really, I'm not here to like preach to you this morning. I just want to help in thinking through how tired I am right now, and how tired some of you are right now of what you're doing, and whether it's the church or whether it's just your personal life. Man, this is such a timely word. And so I just kind of want to unpack this, help you understand what Jesus is truly offering us this morning. And so when we look at that beginning portion of the verse 28, Jesus says, come to me. It is so important that we understand this piece of Jesus. And I just explained it like this. So I'll be married for 9 years this coming May. I've been a dad for a little over 7 years. And I love going places with my kids and taking them out. I love buying them gifts, of course. I mean, Christmas morning is so incredible. Those of you that have kids, you spend, at least a couple days, but maybe a couple weeks, couple months, getting all the stuff, wrapping it, preparing it, and then it's done in like 30 seconds, right? But it's so much fun. I love doing all that stuff. But nothing trumps just being with them, being present with them. The buying, the doing, the going is great. And honestly, the older I get, and not just because I have my own kids and my own family, but just going to visit my granny back home. And that's grandmother for all you North Raleigh people. Grandmother, right? I love Goldsboro's home, and I love going to visit her. And literally, she hangs on every word we say. Because we're just in her. We're just with her. Just spending time with her. That presence is king. And it's so important that we understand it, especially, again, knowing where you are right now, everything's about to change. Hard work's about to change. The commitment level's about to up. It's all about going, going, going. The reason you're moving is so you can go into all the world, so you can go and make disciples. Go, 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 go. And that should be celebrated. That should be talked about. It is a very huge piece of being a Christian and being a church. But first and foremost, the ability to come to Jesus. We often celebrate the going, but for some reason we kind of skip over what initiated that, and that was the invitation to come. What I'm trying to say is Jesus doesn't just say go, but he says come. Look at Moses, right? We know Moses, we celebrate Moses for rescuing the nation of Israel out of slavery. But before he stood with the nation of Israel around him and the Egyptian army behind him, and the ocean in front of him, and he raised his staff, and God parted the ocean. Before all of that, Moses was found in the presence of God in the form of a burning bush. David, before he was ever in the palace, was found faithful, where? In the pasture. Tending the sheep, his responsibility. Singing songs to God. Long before he was standing over the giant after he slayed him, he was there. With Jesus, with God in that moment. The disciples, before Peter stood before the very religious leaders that crucified Jesus, boldly proclaiming the gospel, before God used Peter to preach a message that saw over 3,000 people in one day come to Christ, Peter was walking with Jesus, eating with him, resting with him, praying with him. He was with him. Jesus himself, the Bible says, early in the morning he rose to go to Bojangles. No, maybe, because that is pretty heavenly. I'm pretty sure Bowberries, that is manna, I'm pretty sure. He said he went to go spend time with the Father. He got away from everybody, from everything, to come to the Father. There's nothing that trumps intimacy. Husbands, try buying stuff with your wife and never talking to her. See how long that lasts. Even if her love language is being showered with gifts, intimacy is key. Nothing trumps intimacy. And if you didn't hear nothing else I say, for those of you that are involved and committed to seeing this season for your church take place, there's nothing that God will call you to do that trumps intimacy with him. Nothing. So make sure you understand he's saying come. Then it's important to understand who he's inviting to come. Okay, so quickly, it says, all of you who are weary and carry heavy burdens, I will give you rest. The King James Version that my granny uses says, those who labor and are heavy laden. Those who labor and are heavy laden. So that implies a couple things. Labor is not just talking about our sin and our shame and kind of the things that are associated with our mistakes. But really what it's talking about is us picking up weight and placing it on ourselves. In other words, carrying things around that we were never intended to carry. Believing lies, believing falsehoods, believing that our sin identifies us. That we are identified by our mistakes and past and failures. I just think through, so I've got two boys. They're both about to turn a little older. So my oldest son, who's the middle child, will be 6, and my youngest will be 5. And so already just trying to cultivate that responsibility and just taking care of the house and, all those different things. And so one of the things we do is when mom shows up with the groceries, we help her get the groceries out. Now, they don't go for the Pringle can. They want to lift up the flat of water. They want to put the 50-pound dog food on their shoulder. Why? Because they're trying to prove themselves. They're trying to, look, Dad, feel that, right? And I'm just looking at them like, no. Like, you just get what you can handle. You're not ready for that. You were never intended to carry that. I'll take that. You take what you can get. So it's not just our sin and shame that may be weighing you down this morning. It could be something you've picked up and you've been trying to carry, and you were never meant to carry that. Those who labor Come to me and you will find rest for your souls. And then it's talking about heavy laden, and that's the burdens and the weight that have been placed on us by other people. Any of you carry any of those this morning? Expectations that you were not meant to live up to, but feel like you should. Circumstances, things that have happened to you. Yeah, we've got some self-inflicted wounds this morning, but a lot of us are bearing some marks that were not placed there by your own doing. And it has dominated you and ruled you and is weighing you down this morning. You know, if you think about the terms of a river, the current is going to move you. Like if you're in a river, funny we kind of sang that song this morning, right? But if you're in a river, you're never really still. You're going with the current. But if you're weighed down by something, the only place you're going is down. Don't be weighed down when you leave here today. There's two things that I think you could go home and just start praying through and asking yourself two hard questions. It would help identify, okay? Here it is. What are the things that I do that I wish I didn't? What are the things that I do that I wish I didn't? Here's the second one. What are the things that I wish I could do, but every time I try, something internally stops me? There's a resistance inside of me that won't let me take that risk. It won't let me get that vulnerable. It won't let me trust. It won't let me fully engage, fully go all in, fully love. Again, this is a timely invitation because there's so much going on around us. What I have learned in my life is that stress and fear and anxiety, it's not a simple thing to carry these things and to have these things. But what you do with it does matter. And what I have found out is that that stress, that fear, that anxiety, they're great indicators that I need to rest. When I first had kids, I would go hang out with my friends or my family, and they would be like, as soon as I walked into the room, like literally like stepping in the room, it was like, God, you look tired. Yeah, of course I look tired. We had 3 babies in 3 years. Like, yeah, I'm tired. But then it just kept happening. Everyone, like, man, you look tired, bro. Like, you tired, man. Why you look so tired for? And it started like bothering me. Like, why? Like, maybe it's just the way I look. You know what I'm saying? Like, dang, you look tired, man. Some of you walked in this morning. You look tired. Let me tell you why. Because anxiety is terrible. You could be having an attack and no one would even know because it's an inward thing. It feels like you're malfunctioning and you can't process your own thoughts. You get a knot in your stomach and you can't even take a full breath at moments. But outwardly, you can literally sit there and look completely fine until someone speaks to you. And if you're like me, the idea of rest seems so foreign to me. Especially in a moment like this, 21 days out. It's crunch time, baby. Time to hustle. And I'm just like, God, I'll take care of the hustle. You take care of the flow. You know what I'm saying? Come on, like, I'll do that. You do your part. Hey, I'm just like, but here's how I think, okay? And this is a lie. This is a lie. Too many people depend on me for me to slow down. If I stop, someone goes without. My wife, my kids, my team, my church, my family, the people who don't know me yet, the people who don't know Jesus. If I slow down, well, God, your mission doesn't go out. Last time I checked, I'm not the only one carrying the mission, but sometimes we believe that we are. So I'm laying in the middle of, I'm kind of hitting that hour. The kids are down. I have a choice. I can go lay down, or I can continue to tinker and think. And it's so hard for me to disengage. But then I make a decision to go lay down, and I can't sleep because too much is on my mind, and I can't calm my mind down. Because again, there's too many things that I can't control. If I'm sleeping, I can't control what's going on around me. If I'm resting, if I disengage, if I relinquish control, that's tough. That's who Jesus is inviting. That's why you need rest for your soul. And then lastly, it's so important that we understand what he's actually inviting us to. Like, where does the rest come from? Jesus. Jesus is the rest. Jesus is the source. The same Jesus in this passage is the same Jesus referred to in 1 Peter 5:7, that he is sufficient to meet all of your needs. It's the same Jesus, or that's Philippians 4:19, excuse me. It's the same Jesus in 1 Peter 5:7 that we can cast our anxiety upon. Why? Because he cares for us. It's the same Jesus that Paul is referencing in Ephesians 3:20, who will do exceedingly and abundantly more than we can even ask, think, or imagine. That Jesus, it's the same Jesus. In Mark chapter 4, when the disciples are going to the other side, right? They're in this massive body of water they have to cross over to get to the other side, the place of the unknown. They don't know what waits for them on the other side. Sound familiar yet? And they're just on this journey. All of a sudden, this storm rolls up. Let me tell you, in the next few weeks, you're going to have some stuff pop up you didn't plan for. Something's going to pop up in your life you didn't see coming. Storm rolls up. The disciples are freaking out, right? They're pretty certain death is imminent. Like, we're going to capsize, we're going to die. They're like, where's Jesus? They're looking, where's Jesus? I can't find him. Where's he at? They find him. Some of you know the story. They find him. He's asleep. I don't know if you've ever been on a boat before, but just a few foot of waves is pretty, like, you can tell, how is my man sleeping in a storm? Like, even George Clooney was awake. You know, I don't even know how you are sleeping right now. So they get Jesus and they wake him up, and he comes and he says 3 words, peace, be still. Storm stops. And he turns to the disciples and he rebukes them. And for so long we've read that and we've heard that and we've perceived that to be that he rebuked them because they had the ability to speak to the storm and do what he did, and I believe that's true. But what if he was rebuking them because not every storm is worth losing sleep over? What if he was rebuking them because he was with them and that's all that mattered? And even though the waves were mounting and the wind was blowing and everything around them was unstable, there was a stable force with them in that moment. And all they had to do was trust in that and rest. That's the rest that he brings. The last half of that verse says, take my yoke upon you. Some of you know what that means. Essentially, is referencing the oxen in the field, the beasts of burden. And the yoke is the wooden beam that's placed on the ox so that he can bear the weight. In other words, so that he can work. And I read that and I'm, okay, Jesus. Like, are you trying to offer us rest? Or are you trying to make us do some work? Like, which is it? And you begin to understand that what Jesus is saying is, yeah. I'm going to place a yoke on you, but it's a yoke that you were created to carry. 2 Corinthians 5:21 talks about a great exchange where my sin and shame was taken upon Jesus. And in exchange for that, I got relief. I got grace. I got love. I got freedom. I got purpose. I got a weight that I was either intended to carry or a weight, a responsibility that I would grow into. And that is what Jesus, that's the invitation, is you will find rest. But it sounds like work. And when you understand that in that reference, in that analogy, there was always 2 oxen carrying the yoke. And it wasn't just one oxen carrying it, it was both of them sharing the weight. And the way it happened is they would take a trained, strong oxen and pair him with a new, fresh oxen, and they would work together. But the big oxen would bear the weights. He would shoulder it until the oxen grew strong enough to bear it as well. Jesus says, come to me all who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest for your soul. Take my yoke upon you, for it is easy and light. Listen to what I'm saying. It's not easy in light because all of a sudden there's nothing to do on your part. It's not easy in light because all of a sudden there's no sacrifice and there's no work and there's no commitment. It's easy in light because he bears it with you and he shields you with his glory until you grow into the weights. And he exchanges your sin and your shame and your anxiety and your fear and your doubt, and he replaces it. He replaces it with confidence and freedom and healing and purpose and grace. There's a good chance that the reason you've been carrying some of the things that you've carried into this morning, it's not that you haven't prayed. It's not that you haven't desired to be able to finally let go, to finally forgive, to finally heal, and to finally move on. Maybe the reason God hasn't delivered you from it yet because he wants to use it to develop you. He wants to walk with you in this moment, shouldering the weight, shouldering the load, teaching you how to walk again, teaching you how to trust again, teaching you how to go all in, how to believe and dream. And until you're ready, he's going to bear that weight with you. And man, what you would look like on the other side of that. The things you would be able to accomplish, the things that you would be able to do. But understanding that all of that originates, it ends and it begins and it goes through intimacy with him. So the invitation is that this morning, to come. And not to just find salvation for your soul, but to find freedom for your heart. Because if your heart's not free, you can't love. If your heart's not free, you can't trust. If your heart's not free, you can't take risk. You're going to shield, you're going to deflect, you're going to resist. Stop resisting. Come. Find rest for your souls. Sleep at night. Father, we love you. And we thank you for